Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to one more edition of Let's Talk. Good afternoon for those who are watching from Brazil, and good evening for those in Europe. My name is Mario Luna, and in the next hour, we'll be talking about paraperceptions and the research on this subject that's being carried out by ASSIPI, the new Center of Parapsychism Research of the International Association of Intersubstantial Parapsychism, ASSIPI. It's also important to begin with the principle of disbelief. Don't believe in anything, not even in what we say here in our conversation. Experiment, have your own experiences. To talk about our paraperceptions, let me introduce you to our guests today. Rodrigo Marchioli is a lawyer and university professor, PhD candidate in general theory and philosophy of law, master's degree in human rights, volunteer since 2011 and teaching since 2013. Author of books, encyclopedia entries, and articles, especially in Conscientiology. It's very good to have you here today, Rodrigo. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Mario, for the invitation. Good afternoon, all. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ricardo Botelho is a lawyer, Bachelor of Laws, postgraduate in economics, and master in European economic law. He's a volunteer at ASSIPI and has been studying and researching on Conscientiology since 2021. It's also our debut presence here in Let's Talk. Thank you, Ricardo, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you for having me in Let's Talk About It. It's a pleasure and honor to join you guys in this conversation. Thank you.
Very nice, Ricardo. Ulisses Schlossler is a psychologist, researcher with publications in Conscientiology. He's the author of Neological Dictionary of Paraphenomenology, 2021, member of the NGO Alternative Perspectives in Global Concerns, APGC. He's been a volunteer since 1989, currently at ASSIPI, and teaching since 1999. Thank you for coming, for joining us today, Ulisses.
Thank you, Mario. It's a great pleasure to be here with you again and together with our friends, Rodrigo, Ricardo. Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Very nice. Thank you. It's important to say that our conversation is based on consciential paradigm from the science Conscientiology, right? So Conscientiology is the science that studies our consciousness, or the consciousness as a whole. But what we consider consciousness is a human being like you and me and all of us, right? With all the bodies, existences, experiences, acting in many existential dimensions, right? To study our life in a multi-dimensional scope, the consciential paradigm is used, right? Focused on bioenergies, multidimensionality, pluri-existentiality, self-research to study ourselves, right? So that we can study ourselves, cosmoethics, universalism, and holosoma, which is the vehicles that we manifest, right? Or four vehicles we manifest. Let's Talk is a monthly event carried out by ASSIPI. ASSIPI is, as I said in the beginning, right, is the International Association of Intersubstantial Parapsychism. It's a consciential-centric institution specialized in the study, research, and development of the practical use of parapsychism. But what you may ask, what parapsychism is? Parapsychism is the set of advanced paraperceptions, which we'll be talking today, of consciousness, in addition to the 5 basic senses of the human body. It's a natural skill to every individual, right? And can be rationally, willingly, and developed, free from any religious connotations and mystical approach, right? It depends only on you, the development of the parapsychism. And here, Let's Talk is one of the activities which are part of the ASSIPI in English project. ASSIPI in English project is aimed to promote the ideas of conscientiology worldwide, right? The project is especially focused on the study, research, and the useful practice of parapsychism. Well, let's get started with our today's topic. I'd like to start this topic, paraperceptions, because I think that paraperceptions are so much an everyday issue that everyone has, whether they are aware of it or not, but everyone has. I would like you guys to start defining what paraperceptions are.
Tough question, but I think we could define paraperceptions, and I will ask my friends here, Ricardo and Ulisses, to help me, please, because I think they have a lot of content to share with us about this topic. But I would say that paraperceptions are a kind of perception. Let's talk about perception in a more broad way. And I would say that are the perceptions that transcend. I think this is the key word to define paraperception, is the perception that transcends the perception that we usually have from our physical body. So I think we could define paraperception like this, and we could, this is a simple definition. We could go further in this definition, but it's a good start. And we could think also about paraperception like some kind of perception or some kind of enhancement of the physical perception. We could think about this in this sense also. So I would put this to start our discussion, and I would like to hear my friends to know what they think about this.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I agree with the basic definition that the paraperception may be considered the perceptions that are beyond the boundaries of the human body, and I would add that these perceptions are under the conventional materialistic perspective or paradigm is an impossibility. So we are a group of researchers that under the materialistic paradigm are investigating in theory an impossibility, but the fact is that those perceptions are real, are self-evident for the researcher, for the person that experiment, and so that we cannot ignore the perceptions, and we are curious and courageous enough to research. That's the interest point of it.
Very well said. Ulysses?
Yes, I would add that if we are thinking about the paraperceptions or perceptions, we are talking about something that may be considered real, different from imagination. So we may have perceptions from each other, even paraperceptions, but there is a special kind of paraperception when it comes from a different dimension, from this intraphysical dimension. So we admit the existence of extraphysical dimensions. So we may classify different kinds of paraperceptions. It's really a very great world, the extraphysical world, the paraperceptions that we may have also between two human beings. We may find, for instance, telepathy, clairvoyance, and this may happen together, putting together the extra-physical dimension and also the intra-physical dimension. It may happen, not only that. So I just would like to add those notions.
Okay, one thing that would be good for us to be talking about is in everyday life, right? Because actually, when we talk about conscientiology, as I said, conscientiology is a science that studies the consciousness as a whole, and it also involves our multidimensional the multidimensional context that we live in, right? So these perceptions basically come, and it's the result of our interaction in our everyday life with other dimensions, right? So for someone who is watching us now and don't have an idea very clearly of what a paraperception is, it's important to say that it can happen whether the person is aware or unaware of this process, right? So I'd just like you to go now, Rodrigo. What kind of paraperceptions, or what kinds of interaction through these perceptions or multidimensional perceptions can someone have in our everyday life, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
would be interesting, just to make
great.
the link with the people. All right, go ahead.
Yes. No, great question, Mario. I think you put some great a great point here to the discussion, because I think it would be very useful if we could distinguish the objects of perception, and then we could so define what is the object of a paraperception. So in order to do this, we would have to establish what are the objects of perception, and then understand what are the objects of paraperception. So in our regular perception, perception that comes from our physical body, we would have vision, audition, smells, taste, and so on, and many other kinds of perception, like the perception of movement and the inner perceptions of our body. These are all perceptions that come from a physical experience. So these kind of perceptions, they produce a kind of object of perception. So there are other types of perception, if I could say, that we can perceive, but it's not directly related to our bodies, our physical bodies, which are some kind of transcendent perception, we could say, but not in a transcendent way that conscientiology defends or puts to our thinking. So if we could, I would take, for example, the example of Ulysses. He said previously, the imagination, for example, or a thought. We perceive these kind of things. We perceive images in our mind that are not strictly or directly correlated to our physical experience. So we could say that we have some kind of perception of this nature, but it's not already the paraperception that we are talking here. I think to really make a clear distinguish between perception and paraperception, and the objects that arise from each of these kind of perceptions, we could establish that paraperceptions deals with objects that comes from some extra-physical reality, as Ulysses also said. So we could establish, like, if it does not come from our mind or not, nor from our body, it is a paraperception. We could say like something like this: it does not come from our body nor from our mind. So we could say, like, obviously that there is a connection between all these elements. I'm not saying that it happens independently of these elements, body and mind, but we could say, for example, I don't know that word in English, but signalectic, I think, is
Signaling.
signaling. Yes, a parapsychic signaling. It has a connection with our body, our mind, but it does not comes from exactly from our body nor from our mind. It comes from maybe an interaction with some energies, from some extra physical consciousness. So it's totally different, the object of perception. So I think I'm trying to establish something here, but I think it's a good way to try to differentiate the perceptions and paraperceptions.
Good, Rodrigo. Ulysses or Ricardo would like to add something?
Yes, maybe I can say something. And
Sure.
in terms of everyday life, your question is about something useful for everyday life.
Yeah, sure.
It seems that it's very common for people and to have precognitions, knowledge about something that will happen in the future. And another kind of phenomenon is linked to experiences during the night, during sleep, images, information from deceased people, people who is already dead, information about the past, the future, and many times the sensation of living outside of the body during the sleep. So clairvoyance, clairaudience, and the phenomenon through the hearing of sounds, images. Well, all those experiences in general, they are common to people, but people, many of them, they don't like to study and to really to research and to read about this. Well, we are here to talk about this, that if anyone has such a kind of phenomenon, you can study, you may research. There is a lot of literature about that. And we are trying to develop research, not only to think about the existence of those realities, but mainly about the methodologies of how to research and how to develop those abilities to help our daily life. So, in daily life, I would say that it's possible for us to use those experiences to live in a better way.
Definitely. Now, I would like to ask Ricardo about something. One of the pillars of conscientiology is the self-research. So, and we know actually from this research that this the sensation and the vision and the experiences we might have is really subjective, right? So, it's the importance of self-research is really big, paramount importance. Um, and so I would like you to talk about this, the benefits of deepen the study and the knowledge of paraperception. Why is it important?
Yes, Mario. Well, first answer would be that it's possible, and I believe that that is the main novelty of the conscientiological approach. It's possible to have a rational approach to these experiences. So, as we have already said here, parapsychic experience, paraphenomena are common in every culture, every time in history, but these experiences are or have not been yet treated under a rational, scientific, non-religious, non-mystical, or independent from religion and from mysticism. And one first thing is that it's possible to produce knowledge from these investigations and from these experiences. And the other one is that it's this self-research is directly linked to self-knowledge and self-development. So all of this, the main point, the main scope of the knowledge that it's possible to obtain from parapsychic experience is a knowledge which is evolutionary, which is directed to self-knowledge and self-development. And I will put that in that way.
Very nice. And as it's very subjective, right? Depending on one's experience, one's own experience. I'd like to get into the point that we are actually aimed to, which is to talk about the challenges, Rodrigo, the challenges and the benefits of a science of paraperception. Actually, we know that science as a whole studies an object which is outside the observer, right? And in conscientiology, that's the opposite. Actually, we study what happens in our intraconscientiality or from and to our intraconscientiality. So the challenge is bigger, isn't it? Or it is a challenge at all, in your opinion?
Yes, definitely. Because I think to do some self-research, it involves not only the research in itself, but it involves, it's a requirement to the self-researcher to do some, to look up to his own values, principles, what are the directions of his life, his lifestyle, his routines, his discipline, and so on. So it touches in a point which concerns to moral development. So self-research is not only related to research, but it concerns also to moral problems. And as Ricardo said, it connects directly to self-development. So it's a key point today. I think nowadays we have a really great concern about, let's say, health, mental health, values, principles, moral principles, because we are facing some really deep challenges in humanity, because we are facing like we have global concerns about our environment, our sustainability in this planet. So I think this kind of concerns that we are facing are real concerns we are facing now. They can be dealt through the self-research. I think it would be a great tool to deal with this kind of concerns, which are global, which are planetary concerns, and not only to reveal different realities that, like we're saying here, the different dimensions, the pluri-existential other lives, other existence, but it would touch also in very deep problems related to our moral dilemmas and our moral values. As we say here, you said previously about cosmoethics. I think it's a very important point in the self-research. And I think we could develop more about this topic, because I think it's very important to develop here, because differently from other paradigms or other methods to do research, that it's not very important that the researcher have some really strong moral values towards the self-evolution, for example. It's not important to do the research that the researcher have strong values towards self-evolution. It's not important to the research in itself. But here, when we're talking about self-research, it's very important. It's totally opposite. So I think this is a very important and key point to discuss here. If we could develop more about this, I think it would be a great topic.
Definitely, yes. I would just like now to start talking about the CP cons, which is is a challenge for all of us, because we are just
Yes.
working on the new
Yeah,
methodologies and so forth.
yes, I actually didn't say anything about the CP cons, but I think we could also talk about
We're
it.
going with this. Ulysses, can you have a short introduction, please, about the CP cons?
Well, the first thing important today is that Ricardo, you, Mario, Rodrigo, and me, we work together at CPCons. So we are here today also to give this information and to say something about this relation between paraperceptions and this center of research dedicated to investigate the parapsychic world. Well, the institution, ASSIPI, and inside this institution, we had the opportunity to gather people interested in this kind of research. It's a very serious movement Rodrigo here is our first founder. Yes, he is the one that brought these ideas to us. He made the proposition to begin this work, and he is moving ahead, inviting people and creating conditions for us to develop those researches. But especially the ambience in ASSIPI is seen very well. It's a very good ambience, and we have very good conditions in terms of friends, in terms of basic propositions to move ahead, you see. And our challenge is to make science about this kind of subject, because if we look back in the human history, it's really not easy. It's not easy. Right now, the challenges are enormous. And this is our work today, our challenge. Well, I would like to hear also about what my friends should say about that. And after that, I'd like to add a few words in the subject you asked in the last question, but I will say after hearing my friends.
All right.
Okay, Ricardo, you want to say something about this?
Please go ahead, Rodrigo.
No. I've just said that we started this challenge, and I think the ambience that Ulysses highlighted here is a very important topic, a very important point that he brought us, because I think it shows how much we are really concerned and determined to do self-research. So it's not possible to do self-research in a place, an ambience which is not good, which is not positive. So I think this is very illustrative of our work today. So it's a recent initiative we had on ASSIPI, and we have a group of 14 people that from many different approaches, from, I don't know, psychological, medical, humanities, and biological approaches. We have many approaches of the researchers today at CPCons. And it's we are at the very start of the initiative. So we started some brainstorm in the beginning of this year, 2023, and we formulated some regimen, and we subscribed this regimen recently, some months ago. So we are just starting, and we are also we have some programs and projects and studies under development, and we are working. I think that there are a lot of things we could say here, but I think Ulysses would like to give some points about the previous question, and I would like to hear him before going further with this explanation about CPCons.
Well, Rodrigo was talking about the moral, the moral issue. I just would like to add that, for instance, if someone is thinking in a wrong way about another person, probably this person will not perceive the reality of the other person. So, to avoid prejudice, to re-educate our way of perceiving is very important. This is in the basic condition to develop paraperceptions. So prejudice, imagination in different way from reality, this is not very good. It doesn't help to perceive the extra physical reality, because we are talking about perceiving other consciousnesses, perceiving other persons, to perceive the reality of other people. So we must try to avoid a kind of way of thinking when we pollute our mind with wrong thoughts, thoughts that don't correspond to reality. So that requires a kind of inner education to develop paraperceptions. After that, of course, we may talk about special methodology, special proceedings to develop those ability, those skills to perceive the spiritual world. But at first, it requires a kind of inner education. So for the humankind, the problem of prejudice, this is a great, something really difficult. We must overcome this moral condition. That's it.
Ricardo, any comment?
Yes, well, turning back to the scope of the project, the group, well, as my friends have already said here, the main scope is to develop studies and researches into the phenomena of consciousness from the point of view of conscientiology. But what I would like to highlight is the openness aspect of CPCons. It openness not only for interacting and dialoguing with other institutions and research centers or independent researchers from different point of views and paradigms, but also the openness for receiving independent researchers as members. We are open. We have discussed this aspect in the launch of the project of a openness for interacting, exposing our studies, views, and findings in our researches, but also looking at and receiving feedbacks and comments, and also looking to the findings of other researchers of consciousness, of the phenomena of consciousness from different standpoints.
That's important to say, because when we try to study something scientifically, we have to, or we should meet some scientific criteria, right? Which is protocols, publications, methods, and techniques, and follow more or less a determined path for it, right? So I'd like, Rodrigo, that you just tell us the steps that we have in our, or actually the step that we have accomplished in the CPCons and the moments that we are, and actually if we can just tell people about how far we can go or the objectives that we still have ahead, right? So the steps of the CPCons, the moment we are, and our perspectives for the future.
Okay, Mario. So obviously, we want to construct or to build scientific knowledge. Scientific knowledge, it is a very, very debateful topic, because we already debated this in an extension that almost exhausted us, talking about what is science, what is scientific knowledge, and how do we build this knowledge. So the first point we would have to see is, what is science? What is what is the knowledge? This is a very common topic in philosophy of science, epistemology. And I think we have exhausted this point before starting the works in CPCons. So we debated this a lot, and we came to the conclusion that the scientific knowledge is very broad. It's not only built in hard science. We could differentiate hard science or hard knowledge from soft science or soft knowledge. And I think we could make a correlation or a comparison between the issues and the challenges that the human sciences have already today. It's not a really easy task for the human science to really establish a firm basis to say that, oh, this is science. You can validate this knowledge as real science. Human sciences also have this kind of problem. I have a law formation. I am a lawyer and I'm a professor and a PhD candidate also in law, in philosophy of law. And it's very common to have this kind of discussion. What is science to law? And this purposes all human sciences also, I think. But in law, it's very common this discussion, and I think in conscientiology we have the same problem because we are dealing with directly with the subjective of the consciousness. We are dealing directly with subject experiences. So our challenge is to make or to try to make these subjective experiences in objective knowledge. This is our, I think it's one of our main challenges at CPCons. And how do we do that? This is the question. How do we do that? How do we transform subject experiences in objective knowledge? So we have methods, we have methodologies. So we work with methodologies. And for example, I could ask Ulysses here that could say a lot better than me about this. We work with paraphenomenology methodology. So it's a methodology that he developed from the standpoint of conscientiology. And from this perspective, we study the paraphenomena and the phenomena of the consciousness. So these are the steps that we're taking to really build a scientific place or scientific mindset to try to build some really consistent knowledge through conscientiology. I think that there were other questions, Mario. I can't really remember, but I think I could answer the basic questions you made me.
Yes, you did. You did. Yeah. I would just like to go over with more details exactly the point of CPCon. So what we are doing, right, at the moment, or and how. So maybe Ulysses should go over that, please.
Well, maybe I can announce a kind of project that we have to invite people to submit project of research. Anyone that would like to develop any kind of research could look for us and submit a project and talk together with us how to develop a project of research. And starting with projects in research, we may look for methodology, protocols, and to develop scientific procedures, yes, and to communicate and to develop partnership with other institutions. It's not possible to make science alone. And science, it depends on conversation, on partnership, because we may test our findings, our ideas, especially our findings and our methodology. We may offer the methodology we are trying to develop in a way that other institutions also could apply this methodology and try to find the same results. In science, this kind of way of thinking is very basic. So, but it's not common to find this way of thinking with people who work with the extra-physical world. In general, the mystical approach is much more comfortable because you don't need to look for proofs. You don't need to expose yourself for testing. So we are now looking for partnership to expose ourselves for us to be tested. We want to check our knowledge. So we must try to produce a kind of knowledge that we can communicate through protocols of research. So if you ask me right now if we know exactly how to do that, of course we don't know. But I would say that we are trying to make science. We are trying. We search for that. You see, I think we don't need to say, I know how to make science. No, that's not my personal position. I'm seeking for that. I'm looking for that. How to make science. You see, it's a kind of effort. It's a challenge. And as soon as possible, I think that it should be very interesting when we produce new protocols in CPCons. We must try immediately to look for partnership, especially from those who don't agree with us. If we can work together with people who don't agree with us, that's that's great, you see. And if our results could be confirmed, so that's nice. But we are not only looking for good results. In science, it's very, very important when we discover that the way we were thinking was wrong. So I think in terms of science in two ways. Science is very good to show new knowledge and also to change our way of thinking. You see, when I discovered that I was wrong. So I think that it's a great benefit of science.
Definitely. I would like to just express my experience in the CPCons, the work that we have been doing, which is amazing, I would say. Why? Because we studied the theory and all the studies concerning the topics or the expansion of our perceptions to paraperceptions. And from that point on, right, so we have our own experiments like a LabCon or a laboratory, a consciential laboratory. So that has been very enriching, I would say, because you would kind of get into I would say, in a very personal opinion, when you want something, when you are really into an idea and you are doing things or using techniques and methods to measure what you are studying or to consolidate the idea that that's coming from this theory, you get a lot involved with this, and I think that it by itself yields all the scenarios and contexts in which you can test your experiences. And it has been happening to me, like inside, with the studies of CPCon. Ricardo, I'd like you to just describe your experience, because we've been, carrying out experiences. So how has it been for you, these methods and techniques used so far? And it's important to say, before you ask this question, I would like to tell you people who are watching us now that just place your questions about your experiences with paraperceptions, if you have an idea of it, or if you have an experience already, or if you apply any technique or method to enhance and improve your paraperceptions. Just leave here in the comment section. That will be a pleasure to have your opinion in our conversation today. The audience is a bit quiet today. That we haven't had questions so far, but yeah, I just encourage you to place your questions. That will be very nice to have you in our debate, in our talk today. Ricardo, let's go for your own experiences with all these methods and techniques used so far at the work and CPCons.
Yes, Mario, I agree with you. For me, also the experiences have been amazing. I would add that we cannot avoid from, for the purpose of this kind of research, we cannot avoid the first person approach. So we are talking about phenomena of consciousness, and the experience of consciousness is personal by definition. and so but this first person approach also is linked to the fact that the knowledge that is derived from the parapsychic experience is self-evident. This kind of knowledge and self-evidence, which means that it's a knowledge that cannot only be theorized; it must be experienced, and all of the knowledge and techniques already offered by Conscientiology, and also together with, in addition to the methodology that we are applying now in our initial projects at ASSIPI, brings experience, perhaps psychic experience, which much more quality and also quantity. So for me, it has been a very rich experience. I can, as you said, test different self experiments and experience parapsychic phenomena, which is relevant not only for, as I said in the beginning of this conversation, for self-knowledge and self-improvement, self-development, but also to try to construe and to build together with my friends here, together with the colleagues at ASSIPI and Conscientiology, to build new paths for knowledge, for amplifying the human knowledge and amplifying the understanding of the human nature of consciousness by means of a scientific approach. So this is, I believe, that the main point, which is in essence revolutionary, that it's possible to break through the old conceptions that knowledge from personal or perhaps psychic experiences may be obtained, but it's not possible to justify, it's not possible to certify. So the methodologies that have been proposed are intended to clear this path in the way that the knowledge must be checked, must be subject to refutation, so that it could be considered a true, justified knowledge, which means scientific knowledge.
Yes, well, I'd like just to come back because it's been a very fruitful debate and conversations over the time, right? Especially here in Conscientiology, because when we talk about science, right? When we talk about Conscientiology science and projectiology as well, we are talking about something in terms of conscientiological studies. We are talking about something when the researcher and the object of studies are the same. I mean, we have to come from our own perspective. Rodrigo, let's go. I think I'm going to put you in the hit seat now. Well, that's the hot seat. Sorry. How is it? You know, there's always intrigued me how we can consider, because Ulysses said a few minutes ago about the difficulty of making science, right? So how is this perspective, right? The standpoint, and having all these experiences and having our own conclusions. And what's the scientific problem behind it? What do you see in this? What's the big challenge? Because how can I prove that my own experience? Let's go through it.
Yeah, you're putting me in a hot
seat.
but I am already in a hot seat, because here at Foz do Iguaçu, the weather is up to 40 degrees. I don't know.
Definitely
4 degrees Celsius, but yeah, this is I think it's the main point here so we can affirm and say that Conscientiology is actually a science. I think we are in the path of science. I think we must not have haste to do this. We must not be so I don't know, must not hurry up too much about this, or concerned too much about this with the time to do this, because I think it takes time to do it. But I think we should actually think about the paths we're taking to do it. So the main problems are the variables, I would say, we have to isolate from the subjective experience in order to validate these experiences as knowledges. So I think the first thing we should do, or we are trying to do at CPCons, is to develop protocols and procedures, like Ulysses said, but in order to draw an experiment. So we have, in the first place, tried to distinguish and differentiate experiences from experiments. I think this is a very important task we have to do here in Conscientiology, at CPCons, ASSIPI, and so on, and Projectology also. But in order to do this, we need methods and procedures. So if we do not do this, it's just a narrative, a story. It's something that I'm telling you, but how can I really prove that that happened, that that is real? So in order to do that, I think methodologies, methods, techniques, protocols, procedures are important to do this, and transforming experiences to experiments. So in CPCons, we are doing experiments. Obviously, there are experiences, the people that participate CPCons have their own experiences, but we're doing experiments. So when we're doing this, I think we can isolate that variables that could not legitimate or validate our experiences in order to transform them into knowledges. So in projectology is the same. In order to make science, projectology science, we should overcome the experiments, or sorry, the experiences, and go to the experiments. We should do more experiments. So this is what we're trying to do. This is the path we are walking through, and I think we are having some success in this.
Maybe I can say something about our work right now. We are trying to develop a kind of protocol to investigate very simple phenomenon. For instance, the self-catalepsy. It's like a physical numbness when a person relaxes deeply and the person no more feels the physical body. This is a very interesting condition for anyone to leave the body, to have the out-of-body experience. It's a simple phenomenon, but it's very interesting if we can check if someone may learn it, how to produce this condition, and it is like a door to other experiences. And another simple experience is the basic clairvoyance, when you are able to see your energies. So we are developing a kind of complex protocol to investigate very basic phenomena. If we can really organize this protocol and find results, and then to offer this protocol to other people and give other institutions the opportunity to refute our findings, so maybe we are making science. So we may offer other people the opportunity to refute, to make refutation on our findings. So this is the way where we are working right now. This is a protocol. But CPCons very probably will develop many different investigations. Rodrigo, for instance, is interested in investigating cosmoconsciousness. Ricardo is investigating synchronicity. So any research has different subjects. So we are receiving new proposals right now, and we are right in the beginning. So I just wanted to say something about what we are doing right now. See?
Excellent. And Ricardo, there is something else when we talk about, because when people ask me, what's your spiritual direction or what's your spiritual tendency, and say, okay, I research Conscientiology. I've been teaching and studied for quite a while now. And people say, what is it? What's Conscientiology? So the first point is to, I would say, to separate, right? To remove the idea of a religion or a kind of mystical approach of the things that we have been doing here in Conscientiology. But at the same time, when you start researching things, as Ulysses says, right, cosmoconscience or clairvoyance or clairaudience, there is a tendency for most of people connected directly to something religious or mystical. Is it one of the barriers we have to face and know how to climb it and move across it? So what's the challenge in terms of this idea that people have in terms of this mystical and religious approach?
Yeah, you touched on the very important point, because it has deep roots in humanity. So historically, the access to these experiences and this kind of knowledge have always been connected with religion or mysticism, and this is also our tradition in Western civilization, like to separate the knowledge which is immediate, apprehensible by senses, which in theory is the only knowledge that is subject to scientific discussion, scientific knowledge, and other kinds of knowledge which have been discussed today, traditionally is associated with other kinds of traditions and not subject to scientific knowledge. So the main point is the main obstacle is to break through, to break this barrier, which is historical and very deep in human traditions. Let's say that. Another point is that it's not, of course, that it's not very easy, very immediate to access, to have this kind of experience, although it's widespread. So in every people, everywhere, in every culture, in every time, have this and have had this kind of experience, but it's not something that you can produce immediately or not for everyone every time. So and it's also a kind of knowledge which is traditionally controlled by those individuals that have access to these skills. So it's a really challenge to try to investigate this field of experience, because it has such many challenges.
Definitely. Unfortunately, our time has come. And before going for the wrapping up words, I would like to show this book, which is, the author is right here in our conversation, Ulysses Chilosa. That's a great work. This is a dictionary or paraphenomenology, neological dictionary of paraphenomenology, which are at the moment available only in Portuguese, but we'll just leave here in the footnote the link for you to acquire this book, this work. Congratulations, Ulysses, for giving us this kind of material, which is amazingly complete about paraphenomenology, which is what we are talking today, right? People, unfortunately, our time is over, and I would like you to go for the final words. Rodrigo.
Yeah. Just would like to thank you, Mario, for the opportunity to talk about these topics, to bring out my friends together, and to transmit some ideas about paraperception, paraphenomenology, and CPCons, which is the main work that I'm investing my time and my efforts right now. So thank you very much, and I hope to be invited again.
You sure will. Ulysses.
Well, CPCons is a brand new center of research. We may develop an electronic address. We may have a website inside the website of ASSIPI. So all that is brand new. I hope, Mario, that maybe in a few months, you may bring this subject again to offer people new information, because CPCons, it's a newborn baby, you see.
Yes.
We don't have almost anything done so far. So we are just announcing this new birth, okay? So in a
Yes.
few months, it should be very interesting for us to give new information about that.
Sure.
The references and the results and things like that. So
Definitely,
thank
we have
you
an
for the
outreach on this.
opportunity. It was really great to talk about this new baby here. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Ulysses. Ricardo.
Well, it was a pleasure. Mario, thank you again for the invitation. Thank you, my friends, to talk with you about this important and very interesting topics. So for anyone interested in more discussions, can not only contact us at CPCons, but I would say anyone interested should also have a look into Ulysses' book, this terrific book. It was much more than a dictionary. It's a masterpiece. So it's a go for a book for anyone interested in these topics. Thank you
Very
again.
nice, people. So, okay, you're welcome. You're always welcome. What's more, if you want to acquire this book, so just click in the link that people put in the comment section, and that's good. That's good. Do it. Just do it. The next Let's Talk will be on October 29th, 8 a.m. this time, because the topic will be Conscientiology in Australia. That's a very interesting thing, because we are talking with people from 4 countries, which are having Conscientiology ahead of the others: Romania, Germany, Portugal, and Australia. And that's the time that we're talking with people from Australia and know exactly what's all about Conscientiology over there, right? So we have a big event in Australia next year, and people from Australia will be talking with us here at Let's Talk on October 29th. I hope you also be here with us next Let's Talk. People, thank you very much for your participation. I see you in the next edition. Bye-bye.
Thank you.